Hey everyone, welcome back to Bagel TCG. Today we're going to be doing a deck tech for Cindra, Drakaya of Retribution, that just took down a calling, the hunted calling, in Memphis, Tennessee, just this last weekend. I'm going to be doing a review video today to clarify a bit. The difference between a deck tech and a deck review is a review is kind of just going over a deck that's done well. I don't really, I haven't done like 100 reps on the deck. I don't have intense knowledge about it. I'm more reviewing the deck, talking about it, and passing along that information to you in case you haven't already seen it, and breaking the deck down a little bit based on talking to other players. Deck tech is a little more in depth. That means I've grinded Talishar, practiced my teammates, and really refined the deck. I'm going to have a Fang deck tech coming out in 3 or 4 days. I just want to get some more reps in with him, but I think he's a really interesting hero, so watch out for that. But let's get into the deck review here with Cindra. The deck that won was piloted by Brody Spurlock to the finish. There were some other prominent players such as Yuki Lee Bender also on the deck. And so I'm going to go over the card choices, the philosophy and strategy of the deck, and maybe some alternative picks as well, and some tips to play the deck. So Cindra is a Royal Draconic Ninja hero. You're not really going to care about the Royal part at all, but you are going to play a lot of Draconic Ninja and Draconic Ninja cards. She has the text, when you hit a marked hero, create a fealty token. This will matter sometimes. We're not doing a lot of marking, to be honest. The second part is the big part of the text. For 3 resources, you can equip up to 2 Draconic daggers from your graveyard, but it costs 1 less for each Draconic chainlink you control. So if you have 3 chainlinks, it's free, and it lets you grab both your daggers back whenever you destroy them. And you will be destroying them a lot. Not only do they destroy themselves when you attack with them, they cost 1 to attack with, and they attack for 1 with go again. When the combat chain closes, they get destroyed. But also, you're going to be using Flick Knives every single turn, basically. So Flick Knives is a arm piece. It's an assassin ninja arm piece from Outsiders. For no resources, during the attack reaction step, you can target a dagger you control that's not on the active chain link, meaning it's not the current attack, and you can deal 1 damage to target hero. So you basically throw it right at them. If damage is dealt this way, the dagger has hit, then destroy the dagger. This is really, really powerful. It's basically 1 unblockable damage every single turn, which is quite strong. You can just throw it right at them. There's are some prevention effects in the game, but there's not many. So for most of the time, you're just going to be dealing 1 direct damage to them. But the big synergy with this is Mask of Momentum. This is the most famous, ninja headpiece. It's from the very first set of the game, and it's still the strongest one. It says once per turn, when you attack, or when an attack action card you control is the 3rd or higher chain link in a row to hit, draw a card. Really strong, obviously, to get to draw a whole extra card every turn. That's kind of, if the average card deals 3 damage in your deck, you have a lot of 3 go again. It's just an extra 3 damage most turns, right? Of course, you're not going to get it off a lot because your opponent's going to try their best to stop it because it is so good. Where basically, if you got it off every turn, you would essentially never lose. Like, you would just be so powerful that you would never lose. You're not going to get it off most turns because your opponent's going to try to stop you. But this deck makes it as difficult as possible for the opponent to stop it because of how Flick Knives works. So Flick Knives says the dagger has hit, and it happens during the reaction step. The important thing here is if they block a card fully. So let's say you attack with Brand New Cinderclaw. This is a attack that attacks for 3 with go again, and they block for 3, right? If you, in the reaction step, use Flick Knives to throw the kunai at them, even though this hasn't hit, it will still count as that chain link hitting, right? So if it's your second chain link and they block it, you can flick the dagger, it still counts as that chain link hitting. You won't draw the card with Mask of Momentum because it's not the attack action hitting, it's a weapon, and it has to be an attack action, but it'll let you try again on the next chain link, right? Because now you're still continuing that momentum, you still haven't not hit yet, and so if you attack again with another attack, this time with Blaze Headlong for 4 go again, they have to block this again, or you'll draw a card. So it lets you extend a whole extra attack with Mask of Momentum, which is something really powerful that no ninja has been able to do before. You basically get 1 free get out of jail free card on every chain link where they can't stop your Mask of Momentum from ending by blocking an attack action, which is really, really, really powerful. In addition to that, we have the new chest piece from the Hunted, Blood Splattered Vest. This is kind of a more aggro tunic for the deck. It says whenever a dagger you control hits, you can gain a resource, and then put a stain counter on this. If there's 3 or more, you destroy it, and then it can also block for 1 with Blade Break. So it can get you up to 3 resources, or it can block for 1 after maybe getting 2 resources. Both are great, getting at least 3 value from it. You're going to want to obviously get this a lot of time off of flicking the dagger, because that counts as a dagger hitting. And the free resource is great because we are playing quite a few 1 costs in the deck, but we're playing 58 reds and only 2 yellows. You don't ever want to pitch really in this deck, basically ever. You really want to just never pitch. You're never going to be, not never, but you're rarely going to be attacking with the daggers. They're basically just there to be thrown with flick knives and extend chains with mask momentum. In rare cases, you will pitch to attack with them, but the majority of the time, maybe the whole game except for 1 turn, you're not going to be attacking with them. They're getting to be thrown every turn with flick knives and some other cards like Blood Runs Deep that also throws the daggers. Lastly is Dragon Scaler Flight Path, another new equipment from the Hunted. It blocks for 1 with Battle Worn, so you can block with it first before you use its effect. And then as an instant for 3 resources, you can destroy it. And then a Draconic attack gets go again. If it's a weapon or ally, you can attack with it an additional time. And this also costs 1 less to activate for each Draconic chain link you control. So kind of similar to her ability, if you have 3 Draconic chain links, it's free. The really interesting thing here that I think makes this so powerful, not only does it let you get kind of go again with blocking 1, so it's an upgraded Snapdragon Scalers in a lot of ways, but the huge upgrade I see is that it happens as an instant. What that means is you can hit first, and then after the card has hit, you can use this as an instant to give it go again. So way after Snapdragon Scalers, which happens in the attack reaction step, you can hit first and then give it go again. This lets you have a lot more decision-making power, because if you hit and then draw a card with mask momentum, you'll first get to look at that card, and then you can decide if you want to go again with this, or if you want to just not go again and arsenal the card you drew. So it gives you way more decision-making, where if this was Snapdragon Scalers, attack reactions happen before you hit, so you would kind of have to guess if that card is good enough or not for mask momentum. So pretty powerful combo. You're going to use that quite a bit. You do need to remember it's only for Draconic attacks, so I think the whole deck is basically Draconic, except I guess Ravenous Rabble, which already has go again. So it's not going to be a worry that often, but maybe if you're playing some stuff that I have in the maybe board, like Snatch, if you decide to play some generic attacks like Snatch, it would not work on that, which is probably the reason he didn't include Snatch in this list. A little bit of anti-synergy here. All right, so that is the equipment. I talked about that already for about 8 minutes because I think it's the most complex part of the deck, is how Flick Knives works with Kunais and Mask Momentum. This is kind of the most complex part of the deck. Honestly, a lot of the rest of the deck, there is strategy when it comes to sequencing, deciding exactly what order you're going to play your cards. But a lot of times, you're just kind of throwing your whole hand on the board. It mostly costs 0, and if it costs 1, you're going to find a way to get that 1 resource. So yeah, it's definitely a say no blocks and then attack for 20 kind of deck. There are sideboard cards that are good at blocking down here, but for the most part, we're not blocking if we can help it. Yeah, block if it's an important on hit, otherwise say no blocks. Your equipment does a pretty horrible job at blocking. Everything has Blade Break except for the legs, which block 1, so you're not really blocking with equipment either. Going through the cards, you're going to see a lot of just 0 for 3s, Hot on Their Heels, Fire Tenant Strike First, Brand with Cinder Claw, Display Loyalty, Burning Blade Dance, Lava Vein Loyalty, Rising Resentment, Ronin Renegade. There's a lot of them, right? I'm not going to go over them all. Most of them are essentially a fancier version of Ronin Renegade, which is just 0 for 3 with Go Again, and it's Draconic. A lot of them have effects where, for example, Lava Vein, if it's the second one, it gets go again, so you have to start with a different Draconic attack. Or maybe they have on hits or on effects, so Display Loyalty. If you control 2 or more, it gets go again, and when this attacks, create a fealty. This one, if it's 2 or more, it gets go again, and when it hits mark. So they have different effects, but for the most part, they're costing 0, they attack for 3, they get go again, and they're Draconic, right? You have like 18 copies of that or more. They're so important that we're even playing the yellow brand with Cinderclaw as 2 of here. The reason we're playing that is because we have quite a few cards that care about becoming Draconic. That's an important theme for quite a few of the cards in the deck. And Brand with Cinderclaw says your next attack, this combat chain, is Draconic in addition to its other card types. That's pretty important, especially for one of our strongest cards, Art of the Dragon Blood. This is a 0 for 4, 3 block, already pretty good. But it says when this attacks, if it's Draconic, it's not normally Draconic, of course, it gets Go Again, and the next 3 Draconic cards you play cost 1 less to play. That's pretty big discount, of course. That means that you can play 3 1 costs in a row after it. You're not usually going to do that, but if you play all 3 in a row after it, they'll all be free. It discounts all 3 of the next Draconic cards by 1. And it becomes a 0 for 4 Go Again, which is pretty strong. Of course, you have to find a way to make a Draconic. The main 2 ways are one of these 5 copies of Brand with Cinderclaw we have here, or using a Fealty. Fealty is the token this deck uses. As an instant, you can destroy it, and the next card you play is Draconic. We have a few ways to make Fealty. Of course, our hero ability. When we hit a marked hero, we get a Fealty. So we have some ways to mark our opponent. Like I said, not a lot. But for example, this card gets on-hit mark. Then some stuff that just makes a Fealty, namely these 5 cards right here. These 3, I'll say, if you control 2 or more Draconic chain links, this gets Go Again. And when this attacks a hero, create a Fealty. So this is just on attack, which is really nice. You don't even need to hit. And then Demonstrate Devotion is essentially the same thing, but it costs 1 more. It costs 1, and it attacks for 1 more. It attacks for 4. Otherwise, it's identical. It's just 1 more cost, 1 more power. Of course, we're only playing 2 because we don't want a lot of 1 cost in the deck. Of course, we're trying to never pitch if we can help it. Let's look at the 1 cost the deck has, and then we'll talk about how you get that resource. So we have Art of the Dragon Fire. This costs 1. It says when this attacks, if it's Draconic, deal 2 damage to any target and attacks for 5. So if you can use a Fealty or Brand to make this Draconic, it'll attack essentially for 7, with 2 of that being unblockable. We also have Breaking Point. This is really strong. It says Rupture, so it has to be played as Chain Link 4 or higher. When this hits, destroy all cards in their arsenal. Pretty great. 1 for 5. Threatens arsenal. This deck can play it for 0 a lot, so it's like a 0 for 5 CNC kind of effect. Quite strong. We have these 2 Demonstrate Devotions like I discussed. We have 1 Dragon Power. This says when this attacks, if it's Draconic, it gets +3. So it attacks for 7. It's a kind of 4th copy of Art of the Dragon Fire. Not as strong, but still 7. And then we have 1 Hunt the Hunter. This says when this attacks, if you've played another red card this turn, you get to mark the opponent. So ways to get Fealty as well. I think that's all the 1 cost in the deck. Yeah, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 1 cost in the deck. Yeah, I think that's probably the most you want to do, 9 or 10 or so, because you only have a few ways to discount them. You do have them. You get 3 resources at least in the game from your chess piece, so you can play 3 of them for that. That leaves you 7 more that you want to play. You get 1 resource from Drop of Dragon Blood. This is a legendary instant. It costs 1 less to play for each Draconic chain link you control, so if you have 2 chain links, it's free. It gives you a free resource and then draws a card. Pretty great. It just replaces itself and then gets you a resource which you can use for 1 cost that turn. We also have 3 Ignites. This is a new Majestic. It costs 0 and only attacks for 2, which is pretty weak on its surface. 0 for 2 is worse than all our 0 for 3s. But it says when this attacks, the next Draconic card you play or activate this combat chain costs 1 less to play or activate. Pretty amazing. So 1 less damage, but a huge boost to be able to get an extra resource. It also says Draconic card, so it even makes your next dagger free. If you don't have a 1 cost in hand and you want to play this, a lot of times you'll just use your dagger for free next. It's one of the few times you're going to actually attack with the daggers that turn. You do want to try to end most turns with both your daggers re-equipped from Cindra. So yeah, that's fine though. You can usually close the chain or start some turns with just 1 dagger back. I guess don't close the chain because then you can't use Cindra. But you can just start the next turn with only 1 dagger maybe. But the nice thing about Flix Knives is it'll destroy the dagger, and then you can just get it back with Cindra on that chain link. I think those are all the ways, and then also the Art of the Dragon Blood here, which we discussed lets your next 3 Draconic cards cost 1 less. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in the main deck, and then 3 more here. So 10 total, and we're playing 10 1 costs. I think that's probably, about how you want it. You want to see if you can line up each discount with the 1 cost. You can play 10. These are, I think, the only 10 in the game that you can reasonably play. I guess we also have Rising Resentment. This one's just not going to happen very often. But Rising Resentment says when this hits, you can banish an attack action from your hand with cost less than the number of Draconic Chainlinks you control. So this has to be the second Draconic attack to then make your 1 cost free, basically. If you do, it costs 1 less to play. You play this turn. So if this is the second chain link, you can banish a 1 cost. It has to be less than the number of chain links, and then it's discounted by 1. So you have 13 ways to discount, but this does have to hit. I think most opponents are going to block it for 3. But you have 10 unconditional ways to do it where your opponent can't stop you. So quite good there. Otherwise, like I said, I think the deck is mostly just cards that attack. We got 0 for 4 here with Ravenous Rabble, 0 for 4 with Oath of Loyalty, 0 for 4 with Blaze Headlong. I think that it's kind of gone over most of the deck. There's some other cute cards in the deck, like 2 Ancestral Empowerment. I think that card's pretty good. It could even become a 3 of. 1 Wrath of Retribution. This actually costs 1 less for each Draconic Chainlink, and when it attacks, daggers you control get +1 and cost 1 less to activate. So you'll want to play this after your 3rd Chainlink, and then you can have, if you have both your daggers, you can attack with them each for 2 for free, which is really strong. It's kind of a 0 for 7 at that point. Let's just look at the sideboard pretty quick because we're already at 16 minutes, and then I'll jump to the maybe board, and then we'll wrap up. Sideboard, we've got a bunch of defense reactions. This is if you're against another aggro deck maybe where they are going to work well, or maybe against a deck with a lot of attack reactions, such as Assassin. You might want some of these. Wax On is only good if they have a lot of attack actions that cost 0 and that regularly get to 4, or at least especially 5 power, because it says when it defends an attack action card with cost 0, it gets +2. So it'll block for 5. Really, really strong to block for 5 with 1 card, but it only gets its full value if you're blocking a 0 cost attack action that came in for at least 5. So it's best into Assassin, I think, but maybe there's some other decks. For example, if you played into another Cindra, there's really, I think, no 0 costs in the deck that come in for 5. Maybe if they pump it with Fire Tenant and then attack with the Blade's Headlong, it's for 5. So it's okay into other Cindras, but you're not usually going to get the full 5 value. But you'll eventually figure out which matchups that's best for. Shelter from the Storm. The nice thing is this can block 3 Rune Chants, and we don't play any blues, so that might be helpful sometimes. So it could be good into arcane-based decks, like especially Rune Blades, of course. Probably not Wizards. It also just blocks 4, so it's probably fine into aggro decks. Loyalty Beyond the Grave is pretty nice. It blocks 3, and if it's in your graveyard at the start of your turn, you can banish 2 cards named Loyalty Beyond the Grave. If you do, draw a card. So once you get the first 2 in your graveyard, you basically get a free card out of it. Really, really strong. I think he's playing all 3 just for consistency. You could technically play just 2, and it wouldn't change anything. But that's getting a little suspicious with rates there. And then 3 Warmonger's Diplomacy. This isn't because you need blues, of course. This is just to beat Rune Blades and any deck that wants to play, like Azalea, decks that want to play both non-attacks and attacks on the same turn. This makes it so, of course, they can only play all attacks or all non-attacks, so it can disrupt them at the end of your turn. Then we have Arcane Lantern and Spellfray Leggings for Wizards. I don't think you even play Arcane Lantern into Rune Blades because you're not really pitching anyways, so these are basically just if you play against a Wizard, you want those. A few maybe board cards to shout out I've seen in other lists. If you're having a lot of Arachnes near you, or if you have an Arachne problem, if there's a spider problem around you, Hunt to the Ends of Wraith is an amazing sideboard card. When it attacks Arachne, mark them. If this is attacking a marked hero, it gets +2 and go again. So against Arachne, it's always a 0 for 4 go again. It's not good enough into other heroes because you don't mark very often, so it's just 2 go again. But against Arachne, since it automatically marks them, it's pretty amazing. So you could play a few of these in your sideboard. If there's a bunch of Arachnes in your local area, play all 3. Mask of the Pouncing Lynx. This is if the opponent blocks a lot. This is better than Mask Momentum because you're never going to trigger Mask Momentum. I think most decks don't block a ton right now. There's not a lot of full control blockout decks, so it's not super useful at the moment, but It has potential to be in the deck if we see more fatigue style popping up. And then Snatch, of course, this just has a great on hit. It's good to end the chain with. I think the reason he's not playing is we have a lot of already decent chain finishers by themselves, such as Art of the Dragon Fire, Breaking Point, Dragon Power, and Hunt the Hunter. So we already have some good number of chain enders. Maybe we don't need 3 more. And the fact that they're not draconic is a bit of a downside, especially with the boots, like I said. But overall, that is the deck. About 20 minutes. I think I went over the deck pretty well. I hope I went over the deck pretty well. Like I said, I haven't really played this deck much. My teammates have played it a few dozen games now. So I've talked to my team a bit about how the deck works. And I've watched, of course, the stream this weekend and understood those games. And I think it's really powerful. It's shaping up to be in the top 3 aggro decks in the format. I think it's probably pretty close with Viserai and Zen as the best aggro deck. And once those both living legends, which they'll both be gone almost definitely by the end of Road to National season, it's very likely that Zen and Viserai will both living legend at the end of RTN season in about a month, then Cindra will almost certainly be the best aggro deck at that point. So definitely a hero to keep your eyes on. Of course, this is the very first weekend, so not a super optimized list fully, but I think it's a really great start. Maybe you want to mess with some ratios. Maybe you want a third Yellow Brand with Cinder Claw, maybe a third Blood Runs Deep, or a third Ancestral Empowerment. Maybe you don't really like the Dragon Power. Maybe you don't like the Demonstrate Devotions or the Hunt the Hunter, some of these one-ofs. But I think a lot of the core is not going to change. Basically, anything that's a 3 of in this list is probably always going to stay a 3 of. Yeah, just looking at the list, I think all these 3 ofs are kind of guaranteed. So you've got maybe like 5 or 6 slots to mess with, but a lot of the 3 of reds are basically like just so powerful that you're not going to not play them. But thanks so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment. Let me know what you want to see a deck review or deck tech on next. Of course, I'll have a Fang one coming out soon. And I'll see you guys next time.